What's up, everybody? This is Flash001 USA, and today is Saturday. It's October 21st, the year 2017. It's right at 3 p.m. in the afternoon here. Alright, it's official. I've got all of the mechanics put into place on the gasifier for automation, and the next step will be to go ahead and put the electronics on this to operate it. So now what we're going to do right now is we're going to start with the automatic grate shaker, and I'm going to go ahead and cover this with some detail and probably give you some basic measurements, but keep something in mind that your system or your gasifier may be slightly different, so you may not be able to use my exact measurements, but at least what it'll do is it'll give you an idea. So let's go ahead and get an up-close look at it, and we'll cover everything in detail so you know what's going on. Now right now I'm just going to let you get a look at everything here. Okay, let's start with the arms right here. Notice we got one here, then it goes over here, and of course we've got basically a movable elbow. Then it goes down, and then we got this big 3/8 inch rod bolted into here, threaded rod. Now everything is able to move, so keep in mind that everything is not rigid here. Now the rod itself is solid, as is with the foundation that the motor is mounted on. Okay. Then you notice we got a groove cut here, and basically the motor has a cam on it. This is how it operates. Okay. Now this is all made out of aluminum. We keep it nice and light. It makes it easier on the motor itself. And as far as all nuts and bolts and everything go, we are using stop nuts on there, so you're going to have to be able to, do it right. You're going to have to use something that's not going to come apart on you or spin free. So basically a stop nut is the kind of nut that has the nylon in the end of it, okay? So it's not like a lock washer. It's basically just something that when you tighten it down, it stays, hopefully stays put. The same thing down here. We got a stop nut here on this 3/8 inch rod. We got another one on this side here. And of course everything is sandwiched between steel washers. And we do have some grease on everything. This way everything can move freely. As far as the motor goes, this is just as simple as it gets. It's just an old sewing machine motor. The good thing is you can find these all day long, brand new, on eBay. They sell these motors. And they're real cheap, like, I don't know, 20, 25 bucks, if even that much. The maximum current draw is anywhere between 1/4 of an amp up to 1 amp. And normally I see it fluctuating between those two numbers right there, but like I said, it's low power, but it works great. Now, as far as the brace that the motor's mounted on, I'm double braced, and you got to use, you can't use any flimsy metal, so it's got to be double braced, because when this thing's moving back and forth, there will be vibration, and you don't want the motor moving at all, because any energy that's lost in the vibration over here is energy that's not being delivered over here. So I'm not sure what you call this stuff. It's the iron that has the lips on the sides of it right here. I guess what they're doing with this is it gives it stability so it can't bend or twist as easy. But basically, you'll have to make your braces out of something that's real, is what I'm telling you. So, I double brace this. You wouldn't think you'd need that for something like that as far as a tiny motor, but yeah, you do. Okay, now, this piece here at the bottom of this aluminum right here, this aluminum bar here, and I will give you measurements, but not yet. Okay, but this piece here comes up, and then notice we got a little groove cut out in here, and that's where the cam goes right there, so you can see how it spins. We go up, we got our first elbow here, and same thing with this. We got a washer here, we got one in the center, and one on the opposite side, and we're greased up there. And of course we got a lock washer on the back of that, lock nut. We come over here, and this is where the arm is right here, where you see me in video shaking this. And we're attached back here. We got the same thing. We got a lock nut on the back of here. Everything is loose, so it's got enough play that it can spin quite easily. Now you're probably thinking, what is the spring for? Okay, when this thing is operating, it's going back and forth like this. What the spring does is it pulls the handle back up to top dead center. In other words, this is where I've got the grate set up when it's not doing anything. It's just the piece that's in there that shakes the grate is now everything's aligned dead center. So every time this thing runs and shuts off, it'll pull roughly back to the top right here. So I'm going to run this. I'm going to do it one-handed, and it's not going to be easy, but I'm going to let you guys get a look at this in action here, so stand by. Okay, here we go. And by the way, this thing will not just sit here and run for hours on end. It's going to do like that when I'm running. My automation is going to do it just like I would normally do it with my hand. But I'm going to let you see this. Notice how it most of the time it's going to stop really close to top dead center. Okay, now let's take a look inside of this thing. I'm going to let you guys see the thing, what it's doing inside as far as our grate goes. You'll see that it shakes it really good. So let me pause out and get inside here so that you guys can see it. Take a standby. Okay, let me give you a short demonstration of how this works. Now, something that I do want to mention, the whole idea is not to sit here and shake this grate to death, but what we want to do is send a short burst of energy into it to displace any biochar that is building up inside of the grate. And in other words, I'm trying to mimic my hand when I do this. So if you ever watch me on videos, you don't really see me go up there and crank it like I'm doing a T-model forward. You'll see me go up here and just basically jiggle it. And this is what I'm trying to do. And when I set the timers up and the automation, that's exactly how it's going to do. It's going to be just like that. You would never sit here and run this thing for like, I don't know, 5 or 10 seconds nonstop. If you did that, you would probably wind up, if you didn't throw the grate off of the chains, you would wind up shaking all of your biochar right out of the grate, and then you would have basically your hot ember bed would fall through to the bottom, your gasifier would quit working, and you'd probably followed up with a nice foop behind it. So all we want to do is just send a short burst into this thing to clean it. So hopefully this kind of makes sense to you. And now we'll go ahead and move on to the hopper vibrator. So take a standby. I went ahead and pulled the grate checker assembly off the gasifier. I figured this way everybody could get a good look at it, and this way you can see the support mount that the sewing machine motor is secured to also. So let me give you some measurements here. Now both of these aluminum arms are made from the same stock. They're both 1/8 inch thick by 1 inch wide. And let me give you the measurement on the first one here. This is the one that actually hooks to the grate shaker. It's 11 3/4 inch in length. The piece here that ties into the cam on the motor and to the bottom of the support frame is 14 3/4 inch in length. Now I'm going to give you the measurement from right here to where this groove starts here. This is where the piece on the cam rides up and down to actually move this back and forth. So this isn't going to be exact because I'm trying to do all this one-handed, but it should be close enough. Okay. Just about 8 inches and some change. And this guy right here, I can tell you what this is right here. This is 1.5 inches wide. The reason being is this cam here is actually swinging a 1/2 inch back and forth each way, and I wanted to make sure that I had plenty of swing room in there so I didn't get too close to the top or bottom, so I oversized it. Now something else to be aware of also, when the cam is dead center, you'll notice that these gaps here are pretty much identical to each other, so that's how you know you got it set up right also. And you can see how this works as you've seen it on the gasifier. Let's go ahead and take a look at this cam, because I think this was difficult to try to look at also when it was set up on the gasifier. Stand by. It's pretty simple. This is nothing more than a 1 1/4 inch washer, and all I did was I pulled the little pulley off of the motor here, and I centered this washer on it, and I just basically took it and braze welded it on there very lightly so that it would stay in place. And then I've got a number 6 screw going through here, and I've got a piece of plastic for this. It's just aquarium tubing, you know, just something that will keep you from having metal on metal, and you wouldn't want to try to run it without it because the threads on the screw would just chew away on the aluminum. But it works real good. It's basic and simple, and you know, just straightforward. Okay, now that we're looking at this, I'm going to let you get a closer look at it. Hopefully the camera will stay in focus. I really want you to see what's happening here. There you go. That makes life easier like that. And once again, a top view of it. So now you see how we get to swing action here. And by the way, although this is a 1¼ inch washer, we're probably closer to 1 inch when you look at where this is as far as the swing. In other words, we swing ½ inch one way and swing ½ inch the other way. Just oscillates back and forth for a total of 1 inch. Okay, we're going to look down here now before we look at the support frame. This is where the bottom of this arm goes to, and everything on here, I'm using stop nuts. Stop nuts are those nuts that have the nylon inside of them right here. So unlike a lock nut, you can tighten it up and still leave a little bit of play in it. Now aluminum, if you try to put aluminum on aluminum, it likes to stick to itself, so the best thing to do is, I've got steel washers, one here, and of course everything's got a little bit of grease on it. And the same thing with the arm. Right here, let me find it so you can see it. There we go. This is just a 1/4 inch bolt with a stop nut on the back of it. Now I've got 3 washers. I got one here, one in the center, and one on the opposite side. And just a little bit of grease, and that keeps it, you know, just as easily swinging as it needs to be. And don't tighten everything down too much. Just make sure that you got pretty much, you know, most of the play out of it, but it's still got to move with ease. Okay, now for the bottom piece down here, this is a 3/8 inch rod. And we're going to look at the support frame a little bit more depth also. So this is actually about 7½ inches in length. Leaves you some extra hangover there so that you have plenty to work with. And that's pretty much it, guys. It's not much to it at all. It's just as straightforward, as simple as it gets. And I'm going to cover this with a little bit more detail for you. You got to double brace the frame. Now this is what I did right here. I basically made me a frame out of this material right here. This is just stock steel. You can get it anywhere, you know, at any Home Depot or Lowe's or whatnot. And this piece here, these 2 holes here were made for this framework that the gasifier's on, so it'll center between 2 of these guys right here. So the length that I cut this, just in case you're using that type of framework, let's see here, 4 inches. 4 inches in length. Let me back out with the camera. Then I made a T. I came off of it and I made another small piece right here. Now this may vary with you because you may have a different motor setup or a total different setup, but I wound up extending it 2 more inches. And then I built my pieces of double frame right here, because you got to use 2 pieces. You may not think that little motor can twist back and forth, but it can. And any vibration or any movement that's not going into this arm is wasted energy. So I wanted to point that out. Now originally when I made this thing, I built this up and I temporarily bolted this guy onto the back like this. And once I knew it was where it should be, I went ahead and welded everything in place. I didn't weld this because it was already bolted, but it's, you know, tack welded up here, and it's pretty much not going anywhere. So when you put this onto the gasifier, you got to use lock nuts. You got to use lock washers or something so that it can never come loose once you put it in place. You don't want it dancing around. I hope this helps everybody right here. And, you know, like I said, this works really good. Good enough to the point that I'm out here putting this video together. Now, on this guy right here, I'm going to use a little bit of Loctite. For now, I don't have it locked down because I knew I was doing a video. But when I put him on, I'll use just a couple drops of Loctite. And if not, I could always use Elmer's glue. Anything to keep it from spinning loose with vibration. You want to be able to pull it apart and service it. You know, so keep in mind that some of these movable parts, like this in particular, you know, you have it where you can get back to it and work it. Same thing with this piece here that attaches to the arm on the gasifier. I just got a little bit of Loctite on this because if I have to pull it off, you know, I don't want to be fighting it or anything if I tighten it up or use some other type of glue on it. You know, you don't want to make it so tight it can't move, but you don't want to use any type of glue that may give you issues trying to disassemble it. There it is, guys. So you can see what we got here. And also be sure to use your little bit of grease inside this slot right here also. That makes everything move around a lot easier. Okay, let's move on to the next part of the video. Okay, let's cover the wood hopper vibrator that I've got on the gasifier. Now, just like with the Grate shaker, I'm not going to really be able to give you exact measurements of everything. What I am going to do is I'm going to cover it in detail and let you get a good look at everything so you see how everything operates and the concept behind it. The reason being is depending on how you built your gasifier or the materials that you have on hand if you're getting ready to build one, they may not be exact to what I've got here. So I feel that if I'm showing you what I've got, that you can adapt this to whatever you want to. So with that said, let's go ahead and take a look at everything. Now I'm going to start this off by saying that this setup that I've got is slightly different, slightly unorthodox from what you see everybody else do, and I need to give you some explanations on that. People that either build gasifiers professionally or backyard builders like me will take one or two routes when it comes to setting up an automated wood hopper vibrator. People will either purchase a commercially made vibrator motor like this, or they'll make one, and you can make them out of anything. You can make it out of a 12-volt starter motor for a riding lawnmower, or even a 110-volt AC motor. Basically all they do is they go to the shaft and they put an offset weight on it, and they set it up to get enough vibration to do the job. So people will go either two routes with it. Now this one here, like I said, it worked good, but it was a little earthquake machine. I tried it on here, but there's, like I said, there was just so much vibration on this. I didn't like how much it put on the barrel, and I'm not joking when I say that it was felt in the house. You could feel this thing in the house like an earthquake. I had another idea that had been rolling around in the back of my mind for a good while, which brings me to this. And this is a totally different concept. Instead of vibrating everything, this thumps the wood hopper, physically thumps it. I had to do a couple of modifications, but the thing is, I already had the mounting platform for this, and I thought I'm going to try a jigsaw. And I mean, this is the cheapest one I could find. It's like $22 brand new from Harbor Freight. And what I did was I modified the jigsaw. I'm going to zoom in on this. I took the piece off that holds the blades, and I put two little weights on it, basically made a flat hammer, and then I made me an anvil. You can see this thing right here, and I'm going to show you what that's made out of. But I had to have a way to couple it inside to the gasifier and keep it airtight. So let's discuss how I've done that. I did the same trick that everybody does on FEMA gasifiers, and I even did this with this one. Like where people use basically a coupler, they screw it in, they braze weld it in so it's sealed, and then they use two end caps and drill a hole through it, run the rod into it after they fill it full of RTV cement, let it harden, and basically, voila, you got an airtight seal. So I did the same thing, but a little bit larger scale. This I had to use 1/2-inch coupling. So I got a short coupler here, and I don't know how well this is going to show up. I did the same concept. Now, to be able to couple the vibration or the thumps from the saw here, what I had to do was run me a rod through there, but I took it a step further. You can't run a threaded rod in there, because if you do, it'll move back and forth and cause it to leak. It'll act like a file. You have to have a smooth pipe. That's where this stuff comes in. This is 1/2-inch, just basically mild steel. You can buy this tubing all day long at any hardware store. And this is how I interface with it. The good thing about this is 3/8-inch rod happens to fit right in it. So basically what I did is I cut the correct length that I calculated or figured from mine. I ran 3/8-inch rod in it, left enough rod sticking out on both sides to tighten everything in place. Now, see how I got this right here? This is this stuff right here, which is basically the same thing as this stuff right here, okay? Inside of my wood hopper, and I'm going to have to explain this so that it makes sense and I don't get off the beaten trail here. Imagine this is my wood hopper. Unfortunately, my hopper, it stops about midway. It stops right about here, actually. So I had to have a way to send that vibration to it. So I wound up taking some of this stuff here, which this is 1.5 inches, but they also got the lighter duty, which is 3/4 inch. I took a 3/4 inch piece of this stuff here, if you can imagine this, and I welded me a piece on the bottom of my hopper that stuck down right before the grate. And what that did is it allowed me to attach, just like you see right here. You see exactly what I did with this. I've got the 3/8-inch threaded rod run into this 1/2-inch, and I've double washered, used lock nuts, lock washers, the whole nine to keep it from ever coming loose unless I purposely take it off. Then I was able to run that smooth rod through the coupler here, okay? And I used another lock nut, or let me say a stop nut right here, and this keeps anything from basically coming undone on the outside part of it. It's filled with RTV cement, and it's completely airtight. It's as airtight as it needs to be. Remember, we're dealing with basically an extremely low vacuum. So we're not building a submarine here. You can get away with murder with this, but regardless, it's airtight. It's airtight enough for practical purposes. Okay, now on to the anvil. Okay, this is where my finger's at right here. I'm going to be clear about something. You can't smack metal on the metal. And plus this thing, I'm not going to do it because I've already got it preset, but this thing can be screwed out where it hits harder, screwed all the way in where it can't even touch it at all. And all this is basically a couple of 3/8 inch nuts. I got one I made up here just for the camera, stacked on top of each other, and I took them, I slightly braze welded them together so they wouldn't fall apart. This top black piece here is just a seal that you use on a spigot in your sink. Okay, that's my hard rubber right there. Now, of course, I glued everything in, and I used 1/2 inch PVC plastic pipe, you know, this flexible stuff, and shoved everything in there so that it held together. And that's what you're looking at here. I'm trying not to lose you on this, and I'm going to demonstrate this so that you can see how this thing works. And then I'm going to turn back around and demonstrate it actually shaking in the wood hopper. So before we do that, let's look at the rest of the suspension on here. Now the whole idea behind this is this saw had to be mounted up. It had to be mounted up so good that I could just turn around and just shake the daylights out of it and not be concerned about hurting the saw or anything else. Now the saw has its, you know, the wood guide here that it comes with that you put on the wood when you're cutting wood. I braze welded that to my pieces right here, but you can't go with just that because you only have 2 little screws. See the slot here and the slot right here? Let me get my finger where I can see it. So you got 2 slots right here, one there, and those 2 little screws allow you to tilt that thing, you know, for cutting angles. Naturally, I set it for a flat surface, but you couldn't just put this saw on there and call it a day. It would break those little screws off. So what I had to do was I had to build onto this suspension system to hold the jigsaw in place. Not only that, the saw can't move this way or this way. And I accomplished that after I got everything mounted on and I knew it was going to work. I accomplished that by cutting these braces right here. I got one here, one on the bottom side of it. You'll see it right here. So everything is pretty much mirrored. And then I made braces, like I said, that out of wood that hold the saw in place, so it's like grabbing it with your hand, and it bolts to everything. Everything's mounted right in place using 3/8 inch threaded rod. I used oak wood here because I knew that would be good and solid. I didn't want to use pine or anything. That's oak, so that way I know that, you know, it just happened to be, I got real lucky. When I built this up, I was able to perfectly slide this wood here and down here and tighten everything down. It was fit like a glove, because the last thing you want to do is be tightening directly to the plastic and causing fatigue and causing it to crack. So it's held snugly in place, but it's not so tight, you know, that it's going to crack the plastic. But that's basically it. Now this saw does have a speed control on it. I don't use it. You know, when you leave it wide open, use an external speed control. You have to use a speed control. This way you can set, you know, the vibration, because there is a resonant point. As crazy as that sounds, I played around with it and found the resonant point for my setup, and you'll have to do the same for yours. So basically, while I'm set this thing up, I'm going to put this in, hit the on button, and leave it on like that, and let the automation run it. But I'm going to let you look at the brace and how I've done everything here too, and we're going to get a look at this because you can't see everything here. This stuff here is the same thing I built the platform for the gasifier out, which is, ta-da, this stuff here. Same stuff that the electricians use to mount conduit up and stuff with. This stuff here that's going this way, same thing, it's just half the thickness. You can't just mount a vibrator or anything like this onto the back of a thin barrel. What you have to do is reinforce everything. So imagine this. I got this piece here and I'm going to back up from it. Notice that all this has happened dead center of the barrel here. Okay, this brace here, they are held in place with 4 3/8 inch nuts and bolts, complete with locking nuts and washers, the whole 9 on there. It's not going anywhere. But I use thin stuff like this on the back side of it as a sandwich plate, but I took it a step further. I actually cut me some, small steel plates, and I'm going to show you they're about that wide, that are sitting back here too, so when I tightened everything down, it bowed and bent in shape with it. So I gave this extreme tensile strength back here. You have to do that, especially if you decide to go with a regular vibrator. If you don't, you'll tear the system up. So what we're going to do right now is I'm going to give you some demonstrations of this in slow motion. You're going to see how this works, how this kicks in. And when this kicks in, it's going to shove this physically forward about 1/8 of an inch. Just barely kisses it. It's not even hard on the saw at all. But what we're doing is we're thumping the wood hopper. And the wood hopper itself is actually going like this. It's moving. It's probably getting its flex from the lid up here, but it's so little that it's not going to cause any issues like metal fatigue. You're not going to be worried about bending something until it breaks in half. That's not going to happen with this. So what I'm going to do is we're going to demonstrate it. We're going to show you, let you see how this works. Then we're going to look inside the wood hopper. You're going to actually see this thing shaking some wood. And I tell you what, you know, a little bit more of a hassle. Yes, you can go buy a commercial vibrator or build your own. I'm really pleased with this. I got to tell you right now, very little vibration to the barrel, which means I'm not worried about tearing anything up on the outside. And it's going right where it needs to be, which is inside the wood hopper. So we're going to pause out, we're going to look at that, and then we're going to go ahead and end the video. So on that note, stand by, and we'll take a look at what's going on here. You do have to have a motor control on it. And yes, the jigsaw does have one built in, but don't try to use it. You'll never get it right. Using the motor control, I'm probably set up, I don't know, 2/3 of what the power would be going into it. Of course, I'm running the saw full blast when I'm doing that. But what you do is you're going to be looking inside your hopper and adjusting your speed. You're going to be looking for that magical resonance point where you start seeing things really move on the wood. And we'll cover that in a minute also. Now I'm going to do this slow motion, okay? And I'm going to let you see what's happening here. I really want you to see this. Try to get this, we're going to look at it from 2 angles. Okay, you see what's happening. Now, look back here, and hopefully you're going to see this. I'm going to point it out. Let me get something to size my big stupid fingers over here. Okay. I've got a lock nut, by the way, on this thing right here. This is, remember me telling you that there was some threaded rod here? Well, this threaded rod that's inside of this 1/2 inch pipe, 1/2 inch pipe is where my finger is. There's the 1/2 inch coupler with the hole drilled in it. Now that coupler going through there is called a short coupler. There's one on the other side because the coupler itself is, I think, just a 1/2 inch or 1 inch. It's very, very short. So you're going to see this thing going. So I'm going to try to get it as slow as I can. I'll probably have to speed it up and slow it down. Now it's not going to run that slow when we're using it. We're going to be about that fast when we're running this thing to shake the wood in the hopper. Let's take a look inside, and you're going to see just how well this thing shakes up the wood. It really does a great job on shaking the wood in the hopper here. So bear with me. Just what the doctor ordered. What I'm going to do now is we're going to put some water inside here and let you guys see the water vibrate. And you'll see the vibration patterns that go through the water. So I got a jar here somewhere. But it can actually shake enough to knock the jar over, which is good. I mean, you know, hey, the main thing is that it works. So we're going to look at this. Ready? If it can knock over a jar, you know that it's shaking your wood chunks up. That's it, guys. That's all there is to this. Alright everybody, as always, if you got any questions or comments, feel free to leave something below the video, or even shoot me a personal message and I'll try to get back and help you if I can. I hope to see some people try some of these ideas in the near future, especially with the Grate shaker and this hopper thumper that I've got set up, because I really do feel that it's valid and it was worth sharing with everybody. So this is Flash 001 USA. You guys have a good one, and we'll catch you on the next video, which will be when I get this thing totally automated with the electronics. Peace out, everybody.